WrestleMania 36 is now in the history books. I was there live in attendance for both nights. I want to have a discussion about the Roman Reigns finish for WrestleMania 36 Night 2. Now, if you want to hear my complete thoughts on the show, I did record a KLB podcast. It's over 3 hours long, and I'm going to leave a link to that down below in the comments. I'm sorry, in the description for you to check out. So, because we go over all the matches, we go over the literal thunderstorm that hit the show as we're there, which has never happened before in the history of WrestleMania. And we go over all the matches, and, it was a fun little 3-hour show I did last night. It's actually up right now, so I'll leave a link down below if you want to hear my complete thoughts. But I want to focus on the finish of the main event, because some people seem to have a problem with it. I want to kind of explain what was going on here, right? I want to explain why what happened. So at the end of the pay-per-view, it's a triple threat match. Daniel Bryan, Edge, and Roman Reigns. The finish, which I loved this match, by the way. And I love all three of these guys. I'm a big fan of all these guys. Edge is actually my favorite wrestler of the 2000s in WWE. And guess what? In TNA, my favorite of the 2000s, from 2000 to 2010, was Samoa Joe. And then during that time period, guess who my favorite in Ring of Honor was? Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson. So I have a real strong attachment to those two guys, and Roman Reigns has been freaking awesome for the past 6, 7, 8 months, right? We all agree. Now, I want to talk about the finish because some folks were kind of taken aback by the fact that they didn't give Bryan another WrestleMania moment, or even Edge, who had come back from a neck injury and had this great comeback. People were, I was going nuts when Edge came back at the Rumble 2020. I love Edge. I love Edge. But the choice they made with Roman Reigns winning is actually, at first it was kind of surprising, and I thought maybe they were going to try and screw the fans over, but no, this actually makes perfect sense. Now, of course, they could screw it up, and they tend to do that, but this actually makes perfect sense. Now, I want to, first of all, talk about what they were going to do. So, originally, it was going to be Edge versus Roman Reigns, and I thought they were going to do the whole Cinderella story where Edge is going to make this big comeback and get the title back, because that he never lost. But that didn't happen, and I feel like now, even with or without the three-way, he still wouldn't have won that match, now that I understand what the idea was. And the more I sat on this, the more I realized, this was the right move. It was the right choice. So then what happened was they kind of screwed up the booking, and they put Daniel Bryan in there because people really wanted him in this main event, just like in 2014. And because, there's another reason why, but I'll get to it in a minute. And because, according to the reports, Vince McMahon, the chairman of the company, thought that Edge was getting progressively older on television, that he was not the Edge that he had remembered, and he wasn't sure about this main event because this would be closing WrestleMania. He wanted it to be a good match. And obviously the one guy in the company you can count on to have good matches and to put together and structure good matches, especially three ways, is Daniel Bryan. So this idea that I originally had, and many of you had, that the reason why Bryan got put in this is because Edge had flopped as a babyface and they wanted Bryan to close Mania as the champion, that's not why they did it. And I thought that might have been why, but that is not why. They did it because the match worked better as a three-way because, first of all, these guys went balls to the wall. I respect the hell out of them. Edge was amazing. Bryan was amazing. Roman was amazing. They did a great job. Great WrestleMania main event. But, it was because Bryan was the glue that kept this match together. Bryan helped elevate the match and make it a better match because Bryan's always done that. Daniel Bryan has done that his whole career, right? And so I think Vince felt more confident. Now, I want y'all to understand that originally Bryan was not going to even be in this match. Originally, Bryan was going to retire this year. That's what we had heard for months, that 2021 was going to be his retirement, that he was going to go home and become a stay-at-home father with Brie Bella, because they have 2 kids together now, and that he was done. He made tons of money. He lives very, he doesn't live an expensive lifestyle, and he would have always been able to come back and been an ambassador for the company, and probably will come back in the future. So Bryan wasn't even supposed to be in this thing. And he was there to make the match better, and he did. Now, why didn't Edge win the title? Well, some would say it's because of the fact that, he kind of didn't get that over. But at the same time, that's okay because, he's still Edge. He's still a legend, pretty much, right? But that's not why they went with that's not why they did what they did. So first of all, some folks were complaining about the interference. And you have to understand that with a triple threat match, there's no DQ. And Edge was doing dirty things as well. I mean, here's a Concerto 2 men. And to me, having Jey Uso save Roman from getting Concerto made perfect sense because that's his cousin, and he's going to protect him, right? And also, it makes logical sense. There's no DQ. Like, going into this, they established with the promos on SmackDown that Roman Reigns had a problem with this three-way because he didn't want to be the guy who could lose the belt by not getting pinned. So Edge could have pinned Bryan, Bryan could have pinned Edge, and they would have been champion. And that's what they do in these three-ways sometimes. And it's annoying, is that you'll have a three-way where one guy will not get pinned, and then he'll come after whoever the champion ends up being, right? For the next few months. And that could probably, they could probably still do rematches with these guys. We don't know yet, but based on the way this was put together, I'm not so sure that they will. So let me finish what I'm trying to tell you. So, I'll explain. So, Roman winning and the way he won was perfect. Edge Concerto's Bryan. He's out. This is a guy who has documented concussion problems. Obviously, it was a worked Concerto, but still, in the world of kayfabe, this is a devastating move. Bryan's done, right? And then Jey Uso saves Roman. Then Roman Concerto's Edge, who has neck problems. So these guys, Roman had the cancer. He's okay now. The leukemia, whatever. Edge had neck problems, and Bryan had like brain problems and also neck problems too. So these guys all had head and cranial injuries. So a Concerto is even more devastating. Then Roman rolls them on top of each other and pins them both. And that's the most dominating and definitive victory that you could have. He didn't pin one guy, the other guy was on the outside or any of that shenanigan. They had balls with this finish in a good way. Roman Reigns, who has been a dominant champion since September, pinned both guys 1, 2, 3. I think the way this was set up, we're not going to see them for a while. I'm not saying that they're done because I think Edge will still come back, and I think at some point Bryan will too. But these Concertos were devastating. And the idea here is Roman Reigns winning is logical because think about the alternative. Edge wins the belt, Roman gets it back. Yeah, you get the Cinderella story, but Edge wasn't even supposed to be in this, and what's the purpose of that? Like, what does that accomplish? Edge got his big win at last year's Mania, maybe won next year's Mania. That story's not over yet. Because you never know. Edge might beat Roman later this year or next year, whatever. We don't know. But I doubt it. But on top of that, right, you could have Bryan win and get the feel-good moment, which, again, that's also a good... I understand people who didn't like this finish, but I'm trying to explain it to you so you kind of know what the deal is. Having Roman Reigns win is the smartest thing they could have done for business. Like, booking-wise, it makes sense because Bryan's not really a credible guy. He's been losing. Like, he's credible to us, but in the world of kayfabe, he's been losing a lot, and he wants to retire anyways, right, for a while. So he's already, like, 1 foot out the door. And Edge is coming back, right, but he is an older guy who has come off a bit slower, even though he was great in this match. He's been a bit slower at times, but I felt like he is still Edge. I love Edge, right? I want him to be around as long as possible. But the idea is Roman's the youngest guy in this match. He is the champion. He's the dominant champion. You got to have the dominant champion stay dominant so that eventually whoever beats this guy, not Edge, not Bryan, whoever it is that actually dethrones Roman, it's a bigger deal. Now, they set up Cesaro with his win over Seth Rollins. I'm not saying he's going to be the guy to dethrone him, but he could be a challenger on a pay-per-view. Same thing with Nakamura. They could do a lot of different things with Roman Reigns now. But having Roman Reigns win and the way he won so dominantly, first of all, it's a ballsy and shocking finish to WrestleMania. People were saying, oh, it should have had a feel-good ending. No, bro, you got that the night before with Bianca Belair. You got that at WrestleMania anyways the night before, right? And I understand that mentality. Again, I'm not blaming people for being upset, but I'm trying to get them to understand what this is all about. This WrestleMania was in front of like 20,000 people. It wasn't even a full house. It was an emotional show for us as fans. I was there because the first live, big-time stadium WWE show in a year and a half, right? Or not a year and a half, in a year and... Well, actually 2 years, because they didn't do stadium shows. I say big arena shows. Anything over like 10,000 people. Or not including NXT. Everything that's bigger than NXT, this is the first big show back, right? And we got the feel-good moments. We got Cesaro, we got Bianca Belair, we even got Rhea Ripley, right? And people were saying that, oh, you can't have too many faces, lose. That's all bullshit, bro. That's not how wrestling works. Like, in wrestling, you want to have good guys and bad guys win because the story continues. This is not the last WWE show ever. Yes, it was emotional for us to be back there, and we saw Bianca win the title and celebrate with her family. It was a great end to night one. Night two is about the future. Because here's the thing. Next year, they're going to be in Dallas. They're going to be in AT&T Stadium, which seats 100,000 people, or right around there, 97, 98,000. We'll see how many they get. They might not get that, but they're going to get a lot of people, right? Wouldn't it make more sense to have Roman Reigns go into that show looking like he's unbeatable? We've seen him lose before, but he looks like he's unbeatable. And whether he goes up against Brock Lesnar, The Rock, which has been rumored for a while, or anybody, we don't know who his opponent's going to be. It could be the next big guy who they're going to push. It could be any of these guys they have who they want to push. We don't know yet. But wouldn't it make more sense to have Roman Reigns go into that show that they have to sell out 100,000 seats, not 25,000, 100,000 seats, or not have to, but they're going to try to? Does it not make more sense to do it that way? To have the guy remain on top for a longer period of time and then have him eventually maybe lose next year or even the year after. I mean, I don't think he's going to be undefeated for 4 years, but I think keeping him strong like this makes perfect sense. Edge was a great foil for him. Didn't get the job done. He's past his prime. No offense to Edge, he's past his prime. Bryan wants to go. And he should be allowed to go because he's done a lot of things for WWE and he's had a great career. He's a Hall of Fame guy. They're both Hall of Fame. Well, Edge is already in the Hall of Fame. So Roman Reigns winning and getting even more heat makes SmackDown seem like a more must-see show because now it's like, well, who's going to beat this guy? Like, who's the guy going to be? It makes sense. It's a good subversion of expectations. People who say things like, well, WrestleMania should always end with a babyface winning. Bro, they broke that rule in 2000. They broke that rule 21 years ago when Triple H retained at WrestleMania 2000, which I did not like. Rock should have won that match, but still. Then the year after, they had Austin turning heel at WrestleMania in Houston. Big mistake. Here was one of the few times where having a heel win at WrestleMania is all right. It's the right move. He's the younger guy. He's the guy that has to stay strong. And having him lose here while he's still pretty hot, while the ratings are still up, not super high, but they're better than they were before he came back, while he is the guy who has been doing the best work of his career, why ruin that? Back in the day in wrestling, you had Starrcade shows where Ric Flair, the heel, would win the match and retain. And it was fine because people were still invested in where they were going. And I think this is a great idea because it was well executed and it was a great idea because, to me, Roman Reigns retaining just sets up the future so much better. And it continues the story. And it was very dominant. It's like, man, I left WrestleMania beating both these guys. Who's going to beat me? And that's going to be the trigger. That's going to be the big drawing point for this character. So, while I understand people's opinion, you gotta open up a little bit and understand long term. Vince McMahon is old and he's past his prime, in my opinion. And WWE makes a lot of mistakes, man. I criticize him a lot. But this was a good choice. And this was a choice that made the most sense for the future and for Roman Reigns' character and for Edge and Bryan. And they have other pathways they can take with these characters as well. But to me, it was the right move. And I liked it. The match was great. The more I think about it, the more I love this finish. Love the finish. And again, if you want to hear my full thoughts of the entire weekend, check out the KLB. I got a link in the description down below for you to download that show. It's a direct download. And you can listen to it anywhere on your phone or at home. 3 hours recapping both nights. And I think they did a good job in giving us balance. I had a great time, and yeah, now you know why this makes the most sense. Having Bryan win and Edge win to stop Roman now, it's a mistake, yo. Roman's way too hot right now, and you got to stop with these rules of, WrestleMania should end with a babyface victory. Dude, you got that the previous night. Bianca Belair, you got that feel-good moment. She cried, she hugged her family, you got that. Bryan already had that moment in the past. Edge has already had that moment. Even though the Cinderella story is great, right, no question about it, Edge was not really originally going to even be involved in this until the last minute change happened. They changed their minds about who's going to win the Rumble last minute. with Edge winning. So, because the talk was there was going to be Edge and Randy Orton at WrestleMania. And they changed that because Roman got so hot. Because they wanted to keep Roman hot. And that's why they did it. And it makes sense. If you know about wrestling booking going back to the 60s and the 50s and the 70s and the 80s, this makes sense. There is no Hulk Hogan who should close WrestleMania as the babyface victor right now. They don't have a Steve Austin right now. Drew McIntyre's not that guy. He's on a different brand anyways. They don't have that guy right now. They have a John Cena. So why not let the heel get more heat? See, wrestling fans bitched about Cena always winning, but it's like now you have a heel who's getting heat, who people want to see lose, and you're bitching about that? Like, get out of here, bro. Like, pick your poison, bro. Like, I criticize WWE a lot, but this was the right choice. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to y'all soon.